All right, readers. Those clocks, they are striking 13, so let us begin. This week, we are looking at Of Mice and Men by none other than John Steinbeck. Now, all right, a couple quick things. Steinbeck is going to be taught in our school systems. For the teachers out there, if any of you are listening, do not teach your kids The Pearl. For those who don't know, The Pearl is another little novella by Mr. John Steinbeck. And it's a terrible read for a kid. For years and years of my young life, I thought I hated John Steinbeck. I would have sworn that I hated John Steinbeck because of this novel, The Pearl. It wasn't until, and later on, I think I read The Pearl in 7th grade, and then I think it was sophomore year, that they finally gave me Of Mice and Men. Sophomore or junior. Anyway, 3 or 4 years went by. And 3 or 4 years to a kid, that's an eternity. So for an eternity of my young life, even though I enjoyed reading, I was mistaken in thinking that I hated John Steinbeck. Because The Pearl, maybe if I go back and read it now that I'm older, maybe it's good. But for a kid, it is a terrible book. Such a terrible choice with all the just great reads out there that kids can read and identify with. Such as Of Mice and Men. It is great. And I think it's easy to identify with because we've already read things like Tom Sawyer. We've already been introduced to that purely American voice of writing. We can connect to it because we're Americans. And for me, more than The Lost Generation with Hemingway and Fitzy and the rest, definitely more than Faulkner, Steinbeck takes over for Mark Twain. For me, he is the next in that great line of real pure American-voiced authors. If we take Mark Twain as the granddaddy of them all, then John Steinbeck is his first son, with the rest of his little kiddies trying to appease daddy, but none of them can really live up to the hype that is his first child, John Steinbeck. Now, before we get into this book, we've got a little bit of quick book news. Don't worry, no big easy list this week, no coming soon. I was so thrown off by an article I read last night. This article of it being okay to sort your bookshelves by book color. This is a growing movement, folks. People out there everywhere are thinking it's okay to just take your bookshelves and to take your books on it and organize them by whites and yellows and greens and blues and you know what colors there are. If you're an interior design person, I can't think of what other occupation would even think of organizing their books in this haphazard manner. But if you're one of them folk, fine, do it. It's a nuance. You don't care about the books anyway. You're just trying to make something look pretty. But for the reader, for those of us who are literary minded, this is in no way. It is never okay to do this. For us, we need to see Fitzy next to Faulkner. We need to see Voltaire's head poking out next to Vonnegut. You always want to see Sir Arthur Conan Doyle sandwiched in between Charles Dickens and Alexander Dumas. And as has always been the case, you want to see Dean Koontz following Stephen King. It's just how things work. We need to see this. We need order. We got to have it in our lives. It's why we're readers. And when we see a bookshelf organized by color, we don't look at it and think, oh, that's pretty. When I saw a picture of somebody's bookshelf illuminated by color, I thought, that's god-awful. What insane person took these lovely books and shoved them in such a horrible, horrible manner. If you want to do it, fine. Live your lives in a stupid, stupid way. But for us book folk out there, we know it's never okay. And we will have our books where we need them. We will have Harold Robbins next to Tom Robbins. We will have Mark Twain sitting there neatly, at least on the bookshelf, after John Steinbeck, knowing who came first in the literary chronology. So anyway, we will get to Steinbeck. We will get to Of Mice and Men right after this quick word from our sponsor. Today's book report is brought to you by Rent-A-Tard. No longer used just by the rich to cut in line to Disneyland, we've made the adults with special needs rental business affordable for any budget. Their guardians have no qualms about renting out their loved ones, so why should you? Watch them run into walls, marvel at their strength, or put a bucket on their head. As long as you don't fuck them, we don't care. Seriously, folks, no fucking them. Pervs need not apply, but for all the normies, give them a call or visit their website right now. Alright guys, so of Mice and Men. It was originally published back in 1937. That is the same year as Ernest Hemingway's To Have and Have Not, and the same year as And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, the first ever published book by one Dr. Seuss. 37 was a damn fine year for some books. Now, the easiest way to think of Mice and Men is as a character study. Characters including that big, fuzzy, furry guy from the Bugs Bunny cartoons, who's always grabbing Bugs or Wile-E or anybody else that was furry. He'd grab him and hug him, go, I will kiss him and squeeze him and love him and call him George. That guy. He was even born of Mice and Men, because that guy is based on Lenny, one of the two main characters from this novel. Now, Lenny, he was really the original big dumb guy. Anytime you see big dumb guys in any form of art, TV shows, movies, other books, they are an homage to Mr. Lenny. Because back in the day, big guys were to be feared. They were not to be mocked. Think all the way back to your Bible studies. David and Goliath. I mean, sure, Goliath was brought down by the little guy David, but nobody called Goliath dumb. Think back to even your Greek histories. Hercules, Achilles. The biggest, the strongest, the best. The best. Not the dumbest. Never called the dumbest. Hell, even Robert E. Howard's of Conan the Barbarian. He even went east to study the wise ways of the masters. Never considered dumb. Because back in the day, if you called a big, strong guy dumb, he would kill you. So this was a novel idea of Steinbeck's, making the biggest and the strongest, not the best, but the dumbest. But even as simple, Lenny is very lovable. He likes furry things because his Aunt Claire would always give him mice as a kid. He'd always end up killing them because they were fuzzy and he'd stroke the shit out of them till they were dead. He got this way, it's explained, because he was kicked in the head by a horse. Now, if you want to relate him to anyone else in literature, the only predecessor you could possibly compare him to would be Frankenstein's monster. Now, Frankenstein, he was the smart one, and he created this Goliath of a man, thinking he was creating the best of a man. But he created a hulking dullard. Just some dumb beast. But this dullard of a beast, his malady wasn't created by God. Back then we were all thought of God's creatures. He was only dumb because of human invention, human intervention. If not for him being brought back to life, he would still have been the strongest and the best. Because man's hands had touched him, we brought him back incomplete, not whole. Thusly, with Lenny, we have the new big dumb guy, just brought to us, and again, not cursed by God, but a horse kicked him in the head, causing him to grow up simple, dumb, but lovable. The second half of this book is brought to us by George, the second of the main characters. Now, George is a little dude, but he's street smart, and not that tough. And the thing about putting the big and the dumb with the small, the weaker, but the smart, we've seen it so many times now, we don't think of it as a novel idea. And that's because Steinbeck broke through with it being a novel idea. He put these two together, and they completed each other. Because neither of these guys were a main character on their own. They're both just sidekicks. They're number twos. Now, I said that he was the inheritor to Twain's American way of writing luxury. Way of life, what have you. Doesn't matter. Now, a lot of are going to say Hemingway. It's got to be Ernest. Hemingway could never write a book like this. For Hemingway, it was always about the alpha male. And guys like George and Lenny, Hemingway would see only weakness. And Hemingway could not tolerate weakness in a man. Hemingway needed an alpha male like himself. He needed a character like his buddy Ian Fleming's James Bond. That dude that can just go out on his own and handle any situation. That's not the case in this book. The main characters in this book need each other. They rely on each other, and they have to have each other. And the way they fit together, it's it's done really quite beautifully. The idea of the book, and by the way, this is a banned book because of its excessive foul language, and you don't expect to find beauty in something that was banned. Why would anyone ever ban beauty? But for anyone who's ever read this book, you know the way George and Lenny's relationship works out. It is handled quite beautifully, and that comes across on the page. Now, another of the characters that kind of a stereotype now is of Curly. Now, Curly is at the ranch where Lenny and George come for work, and Curly is the boss's son. And he's an angry little man. He's even smaller than George, but he's a boxer. He's a fighter. He always picks on big guys because he has to prove he's tougher. Of Curly, think of him as Napoleon, not only because he has a Napoleonic complex, but also because of his pairing with his wife. She's never given a name. It's just Curly's wife. But Napoleon had Josephine. And Curly and his wife are kind of like Napoleon and Josephine. Curly is the little guy, always fighting the big guy, but he's got this wife that he loves and adores, but doesn't quite return that same unending love and affection for her man the way her man returns it to him. And the other little dude, the smaller one, Curly, he's always shown with a glove on his left hand. It's explained that this is because he's keeping that hand soft for his woman. And something to note, he wore that on his left. If Michael Jackson hadn't worn his glove on his right hand, maybe he would have loved women too instead of little kids. So if you're going to wear one glove, guys, remember, got to be on your left hand. Keep it soft for your woman. The right hand's for working. Now, Curly's wife. She's the nameless beauty. She thinks herself important, but she's never shown in that manner. Beauty is shown as her only quality in this book. Her only good quality, at least. Other than that, she's always seen as a seductress and a troublemaker. Now, the character that he's barely in the book that I love is Slim. Slim is that man's man. He's that Hemingway character. He understands right and wrong. He doesn't need laws. And that's why I especially like this book, and I related it to Twain so much. He is like the Sherburne character from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Slim, like Sherburne, understands the cowardice of mob mentality and lynch mob, i.e. Southern justice. He can move a crowd with his words. No man will go against what Slim has to say. Like even Curly, the boss's son, he cannot reproach anything that Slim has to say. When he tries to fight Lenny, and Lenny ends up crushing his hand, because Lenny is just so massive. He just catches a punch thrown by Curly and just squeezes it, breaking the bones and mangling the hand. When Curly threatens rebuttal against the big simple savage, Slim says no, you were in the wrong. And he tells him, I think your hand got caught in a machine. And Curly does not test his words. Even as the son of the actual ranch owner, he knows that since Slim has said it, he will not tell his father what happened. He will not go against Slim's word and have both Lenny and George fired and thrown off the ranch. Slim has spoken. He is the alpha dog here, and his words will be heeded. All right, gonna take a quick break, guys. Be back more with this next. Hey guys, remember Fuck You cigarettes? The smooth, full-flavored brand of cigarettes from the bluegrass region of Kentucky? Well now, there's Fuck You menthols. That's right. The next time that someone asks you not to smoke, tell them, fuck you, with minty fresh breath and just a hint of urban flair. Look for the green box with the middle finger on it and tell that shopkeep, fuck me with some menthols. That's right. Stop apologizing for your delicious, sexually appealing habit with fuck yous and fuck you menthols. Available now. So guys, you've got all these memorable characters, but it's how they are used, how they are all brought together. That's what makes this novel beautiful and ultimately a masterpiece. Now, we always talk about theme and plot here, And with The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, it's a novel about freedom achieved. It's kind of what makes it the ultimate American novel. It's about that freedom of America. Whereas Of Mice and Men, it is a novel of unattainable freedom. It is a novel about unreachable dreams. Which is why I think this should be included in that section we call dystopian novels. But it never is. I mean, it precedes Orwell's 1984 and even Bradbury's 451. It comes after Huxley's Brave New World, but it's clearly dystopian. It's not about happy endings. It's about the way America's becoming and how we can't really reach those dreams we've been brought up to believe we could always attain. This is a novel about the failed dream of Americans heading west. It's about the Dust Bowl. Now, Americans are just heading west. I mean, sure, some are already there. But Steinbeck, he grew up in the West. He grew up among the Russians and the Spanish, who were already there. But during the Dust Bowl, we told all the American farmers, just head west. Head west to where there's plenty of farming jobs. You can still attain your dreams. We never want to crush our fellow Americans' dreams. Just work harder. Just go here. Work hard in this place, and you can do it. But Steinbeck, he grew up seeing the deplorable, absolutely deplorable conditions of these ranch hands, and he hated it. It's one of those things that led to the writing of this novel. And like The Lost Generation, they lived in Paris, France, and whatever. Isn't it any wonder that when Steinbeck finally traveled to Europe, he chose Russia? Could it be because he grew up among the Russians who were already in the American West? But anyway, whenever we look at the dreams of this novel, of course the main dreams are those of Lenny and George. Because anytime you would ask Lenny, what are you going to do? We could live off of the fat of the land. That's what Lenny would cry at the end of each time that George would tell him about the rabbits. Tell me about the rabbits, George. Tell me about the rabbits. You see, this was their dream. It was the original American dream. George and Lenny would have their own piece of land, their own farm, their own ranch. They'd farm it, they'd work it, they'd have plenty for themselves. And of course, Lenny, being the big dumb old guy that he is, he wanted to tend the rabbits. He would work all he could, as long as at the end of the day, he could just pet and hold those fuzzy rabbits. Just wanted to tend those rabbits. And their dream of their own piece of land, it sucks in the others around them in this novel. Even old Crooks. Crooks is this bitter old black dude. Again, he's put in this novel to show Americans that black folk, yes, were already in the West. They were not just in the South and the Northeast. They had already made it out West, too. And Crooks had seen guys come and seen guys go. You all got dreams of having your own ranch. None of you ever get it. Oh, your buddy Lenny. Or Lenny, your buddy George, he's at a whorehouse now. He's spending y'all's money. He got no stake in this. But Lenny, he's got childhood-like wonder and amazement. He knows that the dream's going to come true because, for a childlike mind, all that children know is dreams. All they have is hopes of a better future. And Lenny makes it real for those around him. Even old cynical Crooks, after listening to Lenny talk about it, it becomes real to him. So real that he even asks, "Can I come with you? Can I please be a part of this dream too? I'd much rather work that piece of our own land than to sit here and to work and toil on someone else's." That's the American dream, our own piece. This dream also sucks in Candy. Oh, poor Candy. Oh, we first see this old farmhand with his lovable old dog. A dog that he's raised since it was a pup. And there's a lot of build-up to them needing to put Candy's old pup down. Because the dog just limps around. It's useless. It can't hunt anymore. It can't track. The only thing the dog can do is be a comfort to old Candy. And so, what do they do with a useless thing? They take it out, back, and they shoot it. They kill Candy's dog. This is foreboding for Candy. He knows. What are they going to do to me? I'll just be put out to pasture, just put out to land, just like my old dog was. So he gets sucked into Lenny and George's dream. He wants to go and live on their ranch. He knows he can't do much, but he can do small things. He can cook. He can clean. And Lenny and George, being the nice guys they are, sure, come along. You can work with us. So they're all just reaching for the same goal now. A bunch of guys together. They've all got their own money. They've all got their own stake. They're going to buy this land. They're going to do it. Now, it's not only the lovable characters in this book. Curly, the one bad guy, you could say, if there is bad guys, he's the bad guy of the book. He had a dream of being a boxer. He failed. He couldn't make it as a boxer. He had to come back to his dad's ranch. Curly's wife, the nameless beauty, she has dreams. She wants to escape this place. She wants to be an actress. She wants to live in glamour in Hollywood. She fails. She doesn't make it. Her failure comes because she gets too close to Lenny, sadly. He's petting her hair, just petting it, like a bunny, like a mouse. And, sadly, he pets it till she panics, then he panics, and he snaps her pretty little neck. And that's the point where the dreams end. The dreams fade. Candy sees it. Crook sees it. Even George. George doesn't want to see it, but he knows it. This is where Slim becomes like Sherburne. From Mark Twain again. That Sherburne character that told us about how men can't do mob justice. They won't lynch a man. But when you get a bunch of men together in a mob mentality, they will lynch a stronger man. Just like they are going to lynch Lenny for this killing of this woman. And so, well, Lenny runs. George had already told him, look, if there's trouble, run to the creek bed. Just go there. Go there. It's part of the bromance of this book. Before there ever was even a word even thought of as dumb as bromance. It's what this novel's about. It's part of the beauty of these two dudes. It's not gay in any way. Get that out of your dirty little heads. It's just these two dudes that have an understanding. Even in Lenny's simpleness, George can get through to him. And so that's where Lenny goes. He goes to the bed and he waits on George. And George goes, and one more time, he tells old Lenny about the rabbits. Tells him about the rabbits, even though he knows this time there's no happy end to this story. They will not be living off the fat of the land. He calms him down. He puts a gun to the back of his head, and he puts him down. It's foreboding to this from the middle of the book, with Candy's old dog. A useless thing has to be put down. If you can't work, if you can't earn your keep in this world, gotta put it down. It's sad. It's where all the dreams come to die. Steinbeck saw it. He grew up out west. He saw these poor American farmers fleeing the Dust Bowl. And then they came flooding into California, all expecting work, all expecting to reach that American dream. All of their dreams were crushed, dashed against the soil. Too many hands, not enough work. You're not a use. You will just be cast aside, like an old dog, like a big dumb guy. You'll just be cast to the side. It's kind of depressing in the end, but the way Steinbeck weaves it all together, it's, if you tell somebody the basic plot line, you think it's a rough book, kind of a dirty book, but it's not. This novel is beautiful. When you read it, you get kind of teary-eyed. It's that pretty written. Prettily written? Whatever. It's a beautiful book. You got to give it a try if you haven't. And if you haven't read in years like I hadn't, go back. I found it more beautiful than I could remember. I mean, first time I read it, I was 15. I wasn't going to use a word like beautiful at 15. I could tell it was good. And that's the thing. It's good. This is a damn good book. And that's what makes me question why it's banned. I mean, I know the answer. It has coarse language towards black folk. Now, we agree it's every writer's job to take the time and place he's living in and to put it in words upon the page so that later generations can read it and know what it was like to live during that time. But we're pretty hypocritical, and that's what we want writers to do. But when we encounter this ugly truth of our own past, we don't like it. We don't want it to be seen. We don't want to be reminded that we did ugly, dirty things. So instead of talking about it and why these ugly, dirty things happened, we just ban it. You can't talk about that. It's terrible. Forget it. Put it on the back burner. This book is now banned. No one can ever read it. It is terrible. We will not be reminded of what we once were. It's exactly why we need this book. Also, they say not just the coarse language, it enforces euthanasia. I don't think Steinbeck was saying kill every useless thing out there. He was just showing us that's what happened. If you had no use and you were coming to California for a dream, guess what? You would be cast aside as if you were some old, dirty, limping, mangy dog. It doesn't matter if someone loves you. No one cares. If you're not a use to someone, we will toss you out to the land and you can just live on your own without help, without charity, because you're not needed or wanted. These seem like simple issues we could just talk about. And it pisses me off when people try to take a book like this that's really, like I said, beautiful. And we just want to ban it. Let's not talk about those things. It's banned. That past is done. We won't discuss it. We won't go back to it. Maybe that's our new American dream. Banning the dirty things of the past. Don't worry. Reach for a brighter future. It's just like this novel shows. We're Americans. No matter where you go and how hard you work, your dreams will come true. We can say it. It doesn't matter if it's a lie or not. Hey, maybe I'm wrong, guys. Tell you what, you should all go out there and read John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. You never know, you may just like it more than me.